Iran has vowed to unleash what it described as the most devastating operation against US bases and Israel following the killing of its supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Fresh airstrikes have been reported across the region today, with 9 people killed in a strike on Israel and 3 people in the UAE. The US has also confirmed that 3 of its service members have been killed. Major military operations have also continued across Iran.
ملت نستوه ایران و امت اسلامی و آزادی خواهان جهان.
This was the moment the death of Iran's supreme leader was confirmed on state television overnight. The killing of the Ayatollah Khamenei in coordinated US-Israeli airstrikes prompted scenes of grief on the streets of the capital, Tehran, as 40 days of mourning and 7 public holidays were announced to mark his death. But for other Iranians, the news brought relief, even jubilation. These videos posted on social media show Iranian residents celebrating the killing of the hardline cleric, who many hold responsible for the deaths of thousands of protesters. Iran has vowed to unleash what it described as the most devastating operation in response to the killing of its leader.
We are defending ourselves, and we have every right, every legitimate right to defend ourselves. What the United States is doing is an act of aggression.
In Israel today, an Iranian missile strike killed 9 people in the city of Beit Shemesh, while explosions were again reported in several Gulf countries hosting US military bases, including the UAE, Qatar and Bahrain. The US Central Command also confirmed that 3 American service members had been killed, although no further details were provided. US and Israeli operations against Iran are also continuing for a second day. Israeli strikes have been targeting central Tehran, while the US has said it has sunk an Iranian ship. As for the apparent end goal of regime change, for now Iran appears defiant, with a new temporary leadership council appointed this morning. Kate Farley, RTÉ News.
Well, earlier I spoke to Foreign Affairs correspondent with Channel 4, Seconder Kamani, who's in Tel Aviv, and asked him how realistic is the US-Israeli aim of regime change in Iran, given events this weekend.
The idea of effecting regime change by air power alone, even with the air superiority that Israel and America clearly have over Iran, seems a very big challenge. Normally, when you look at history, it's air power in conjunction with some kind of ground force. At the moment, there is no ground force like that. Of course, we saw those protest movements in January in Iran that was met with brutal force. But in addition to scenes that we saw last night of some young Iranians coming out in the streets in Iran to celebrate the death of Khamenei, we also saw today large numbers of pro-regime supporters taking to the streets in a show of defiance. And we also know that whilst Iran is clearly taking these blows, it is also launching strikes at Israel, at Gulf Arab countries, closing shipping. It's not clear how any regime change could come about, but what is clear is that all sides, I think, right now are looking at escalating the conflict further. Prime Minister Netanyahu saying just within the last hour that Israeli military strikes are going to intensify yet further.
And what about people in Israel? What have they been saying about these events?
The majority of the Israeli public firmly backs this war against Iran. Many Israelis, certainly Israeli politicians, see Iran as an existential threat to Israel, and you know, one of the kind of totemic chants of the Iranian regime is death to America, death to Israel. So they've always seen the prospect of Iran developing a nuclear weapon as an existential threat. Of course, Iran has denied that it's trying to develop a nuclear weapon, but at the moment we're not looking at further talks. We're looking at further military strikes.
Well, let's go to the United States now, where our Washington correspondent Jackie Fox is standing by. Jackie, what has President Donald Trump been saying about Operation Epic Fury then today?
Well, Kate, Donald Trump is due back here in Washington from his Florida home, Mar-a-Lago, today. And he has no public events scheduled. However, he has been doing a number of interviews with reporters here in the United States. In one of those interviews, he said he saw the fantastic scenes in Iran of people celebrating the death of the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And his administration will be looking at the attacks so far and seeing them as a success following the death of the supreme leader. However, there are some complicating factors here. Number one, how and when is this going to end? In some of those interviews, Donald Trump said that the Iranians now want to talk. He didn't give any further details in relation to that. And he also said that the operation is ahead of schedule. Number two, another factor is US casualties. Already we have seen deaths and injuries when it comes to US military personnel in the region. And this is against a backdrop of growing anxiety in the United States over what retaliation from Iran will look like. There's going to be another big debate here in Washington this week too, and that is whether Donald Trump had the authority to order these attacks in the first place, because Congress has the power to declare war, not the president.
OK, Jackie Fox in Washington, thank you. Well, disruption to flights between Ireland and the Middle East is expected to continue over the coming days. Some Irish citizens have found themselves stranded due to airspace closures. But the Department of Foreign Affairs says no one should consider taking land routes to neighbouring countries and should remain sheltered.
3 Middle East airlines, Emirates, Etihad and Qatar, fly to and from Dublin Airport with connections to Asia and Australia. But for the second day in a row, these airlines have cancelled all flights in and out of Ireland. That disruption is expected to continue.
Between Saturday and Sunday, we saw around 20 flights cancelled, and we're looking at more disruption again tomorrow already. The first wave of flights coming in from the Middle East and going out to the Middle East, they've been cancelled, and the expectation is that there could be further disruption.
Among those stranded is Patrick Lawson, a British citizen who's lived in Ireland for more than 25 years. He's stuck in Doha on his way home from Australia.
My wife is trying, I'm trying, my family is trying to get a hold of Qatar, and we've been left on hold for hours at an end, and then the phone just hangs up. I'm registering with both the Irish and the UK governments. The only thing that I've got emails back from the UK government to say that I'm registered with them. I've got nothing back from the Irish government. If they didn't know anything, if they just got back and said, look, we don't know anything, that's better than being ignored, which is the way I feel right now. I feel like, and there's a couple of people here, there's 3 other Irish people that are trying to get back to Dublin, and they're in the same boat.
The Department of Foreign Affairs says that there's currently about 20,000 Irish people living in or transiting through the Middle East. The Minister, Helen McEntee, said she's aware that some are considering land routes via other neighbouring countries, but that no evacuation routes are recommended, and that all Irish citizens are advised to shelter in the place they're in. For those intending to travel to and through the Middle East, the picture remains uncertain.
Unless the airports find some way of reopening quickly, we're going to start running into problems where we have tens of thousands of people displaced or waiting for the flight home.
Anyone travelling to the region is advised to check with their airlines and, if there, register with the Department of Foreign Affairs. Samantha Libreri, RTE News.
Well, as we've been hearing, an estimated 20,000 Irish citizens are living in the Gulf region, and with airspaces largely closed, the advice from the government here is to shelter in place. Some of those living and working in the area have been sharing their stories.
This was the view from the apartment balcony of Antrim man Lorcan Dara yesterday, as the skies over Doha lit up with missile interceptions.
It was definitely a shock to the system, to put it mildly. Like, it was pretty crazy just going out onto the balcony and you're seeing missiles flying overhead. So they've sort of locked the place down. No one's really allowed to be going outside. It's now the afternoon here, and we haven't heard any explosions. We haven't heard any bombs in a few hours. So hopefully things have settled down here.
23-year-old Emma Jane Dunn from Dublin has been living in the United Arab Emirates for 3 years and was on board a boat just off the coast of Dubai when military action began.
It was a clear sky, completely blue, and then one singular cloud, which is what the interception was. I think last night was the peak. That was the part that really did kind of frighten me. It's just not something I'm used to hearing, but we did get alerts throughout the night, so we were kept informed on what was happening.
Dara Meredith from County Laois has been teaching in Kuwait for 9 years and welcomed his first child last month.
Layla's a month old at the minute, so she's doing well, and obviously she's oblivious to what's going on, but she's the calmest person in the house. The Kuwait airport had been targeted last night. There was a couple of injuries. I mean, my parents are supposed to fly out here in 2 weeks to see the grandchild, so that's kind of the concern, hoping that they'll be able to come out and things will be settled by then.
For now, with airspaces closed across the Gulf region, the advice for all Irish citizens is to shelter in place. Joan O'Sullivan, RTÉ News.